Good morning. I'm Kenyon McDuffie, at-large council member and chair of the council's Committee on Business and Economic Development. Today's Wednesday, September 24th, 2025, and we're convening this hearing in person in room 500 of the John A. Wilson Building and via Zoom. The time is 9:32 a.m. and I'm calling this public roundtable to order. Today, the committee will receive testimony on two resolutions, PR 26-283, the Washington Convention and Sports Authority Board of Directors Cheryl Doggett Confirmation Resolution of 2025, and PR 26-230, the Director of the Alcoholic Beverage and Cannabis Administration Frederick P. Musali Confirmation Resolution of 2025. Proposed Resolution 26-230, the Director of Alcoholic Beverage and Cannabis Administration, Frederick P. Musali, Confirmation Resolution of 2025 was introduced on June 13, 2025 by Chairman Mendelson at the Office of the Secretary and referred to the Committee on Business and Economic Development on June 17th. This proposed resolution will confirm the reappointment of Ms. Musali as Director of the Alcoholic Beverage and Cannabis Administration for a four-year term ending on July 14th, 2029. Proposed Resolution 26-283, the Washington Convention and Sports Authority Board of Directors Cheryl Doggett Confirmation Resolution of 2025 was introduced on July 14th, 2025 by Chairman Mendelson at the Office of the Secretary and referred to the Committee on Business and Economic Development on September 17th, 2025. This proposed resolution will confirm the reappointment of Cheryl Doggett as an individual with proven experience in business, finance, public member of the Washington Convention and Sports Authority Board of Directors for a term to end May 16th, 2029. Cheryl Doggett is the President and Treasurer of Doggett Enterprises, Inc., the parent corporation of Doggett's Parking Company, which was established in 1926 as the first parking company in Washington, D.C. She has also held numerous civic and nonprofit roles, including Chairman Emeritus of the Board of Heroes, Inc., membership on the District of Columbia Police Foundation, and service on the boards of the National Symphony Orchestra, the Greater Washington Board of Trade, and the International Women's Forum of Washington, D.C. Ms. Doggett has previously served as Commissioner on the District of Columbia Commission for Women, Vice Chairman of the Sibley Memorial Hospital Foundation Board of Trustees, and Trustee of the Corcoran Gallery College of Art and Design. There are no public witnesses who signed up to testify, so we're going to begin with Cheryl Doggett. If you want to come on up. And if you could raise your right hand, whichever seat you prefer. You can raise your right hand before you are seated. So can you raise your right hand? Oh, I'll swear you in. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to provide before the Council of the District of Columbia and the Committee on Business and Economic Development is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning. Nice to see you too.
And once you're all settled in, you can begin your testimony.
Good morning to you, members of the committee on the Business and Economic Development Committee. I'm Sherry Warner Doggett. I think the only person that ever called me Cheryl was my mother. It's my pleasure to receive your consideration for my nomination and reappointment to the Washington Convention and Sports Authority Events DC Board of Directors. I'm grateful to Mayor Bowser for nominating me and honored to have this opportunity to continue to serve the residents of the district. Since October of 2014, it's been my privilege to serve as a member of the authority and experience firsthand the many accomplishments, initiatives, and overall impact it has had to help redefine the landscape of opportunity for the district, its residents and visitors. I have enormous appreciation for the dedication and efforts of the Events DC staff and our Chief Executive, Angie Gates, who I might add, is certainly one of the most innovative and dynamic leaders in the district. During my previous terms on the authority, I've served on various committees, including the Finance Committee, Nominating and Search Committees, Community Grants Committee, and I presently serve as the Vice Chair of the board. Each of these experiences has afforded me the opportunity to work with and learn from skilled professional staff as well as benefit from the experience of my esteemed fellow board members who represent many economic engines for this city. I was very proud to be a member of the Strategic Initiatives and Development Committees as we envisioned, planned, and undertook construction of the entertainment and sports arena located on the St. Elizabeth's campus. I firmly believe this project helped to ignite the spark for major redevelopment at this site in Ward 8. As a proud 45-year resident and business owner in Washington, D.C., I've witnessed firsthand how hospitality, sports, and entertainment have helped shape the identity of our city. Whether it is the unity we feel cheering for our teams, the economic impact of hosting major events, or the opportunities created for our citizens and particularly for our youth, it's clear the hospitality industry, along with sports and entertainment, are not just pastimes for our visitors. They are drivers for community engagement, development, and pride. I'm extremely proud of the work of the Events DC Community Grants Committee and our program in which we've demonstrated our commitment to ensure equitable investment to programs, large and small, in all 8 wards of the city. I'm seeking this appointment because I believe I can continue to contribute in a meaningful way to the authority's mission to promote the District of Columbia as a premier destination for sports, tourism, and entertainment, as well as caring, respectful, and vibrant community for all our residents. I thank you again, Chairman McDuffie, for the opportunity to testify before this committee and for your continued support of Events DC and our programs. I'd be happy to respond to any questions.
And thank you for your testimony. I do have a few questions that I'm sure will be familiar to you, given your tenure on the board. The first few questions are pretty standard questions. They'll be followed by some questions specifically about your experience as it relates to the enabling statute for membership on the board of Events DC. Are you a district resident? And if confirmed, do you intend to reside in the district for your entirety of your appointment?
Yes.
Which ward do you reside in currently?
Ward 3.
Are you or have you been a member of any District of Columbia government board or commission other than Events DC currently?
I am not presently, no.
Do you or any member of your immediate family have any interest, financial or otherwise, that may directly or indirectly pose a conflict of interest for you in the performance of your duties?
No.
Do you have any outstanding liability for taxes, fees, or other payments to the District of Columbia or federal, state, or other local government, either contested or uncontested?
No, I do not.
The Events DC enabling statute legislation requires members to possess certain attributes and refrain from certain conduct during their terms. With regard to the statute, have you resided in the District of Columbia continuously since 2021?
Yes, I have.
Have you claimed a principal residence anywhere else other than the District of Columbia during that time?
No.
You're being reappointed as an individual with proven expertise in business finance, public member of the board. So I want you to just give you an opportunity to speak specifically to your experience with finance.
As you, I think, may be aware, we were in the parking business in Washington, D.C. One of the, actually the first parking business. The financial impact of the parking business in the district at one time was substantial, as before redevelopment really began downtown. as the development grew, it changed the entire landscape of our downtown business district. And along with that, the taxes, the land use, property, the entire landscape changed as far as the financial downtown in the District of Columbia. And I was really pleased to be a part of that and watch our city grow and develop in not just buildings, but in financial resources for the city, which turned land that was used strictly for one purpose into a resource that produced many more resources for the city. So it's been a long time, 45 years.
I appreciate that. And I want to note before I move to my next question that we've been joined by your Councilmember Ward 3, Councilmember Matt Fruman.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us this morning, Councilmember Fruman. I'll turn to you for a round shortly, just a couple of more questions. Just thinking about, the time you've been in the District of Columbia and that you've, run a business in the District of Columbia, there has been some change. You noted in your testimony, just some of your experience and your tenure, and you've served on the board since 2014. So I'd love to, if you could talk a little bit about what some of the most significant changes you've seen at Events DC or some of the impact that Events DC has had during your time as a member.
Well, as I mentioned, I think the construction of the entertainment and sports arena in Ward 8 at St. Elizabeth's has been, it was, as you know, it was a challenge to get this whole project started. But with the help of many partners in the district, DMPED, the mayor's office, it was just, we just kept forging ahead until we said, this is the right thing to do for the city. And I honestly do believe it has been one of the primary drivers of redevelopment there at St. Elizabeth's campus. And I'm very proud of that. Another is the Carnegie Library, when we, as it was really an underused asset of the district. And I think to bring in the Apple Store and place the Historical Society on a firm footing where they would be somewhere where they weren't moving every few years, to redevelop that area and put that to good use for the city, I think have been really major factors in demonstrating what Events DC is capable of doing and for the district. And another thing, the community grants, I think.
I actually have a question for you, but I want to, if you don't mind, I want to comment really quickly because I think the two examples you raise are great examples. The Carnegie Library has been activated with the Apple Store, and I swear when I'm in that neighborhood, whether I'm at the convention center, Marriott Marquis, or some restaurant nearby, you see people moving in and around that building. In fact, I was just there, purchased another iPhone just last month. And so I appreciate the work that you all have done there. I don't know if it gets discussed as much as it should, given the work that you've done there. So I think that's a great example. And then the ESA, Care First Arena, I spend lots of time there. My family and I, my daughter in particular, we go to lots of Mystics games. And what it's meant for that campus on St. Elizabeth's, really as a catalyst, is really remarkable. So I think that's another great example. And it leads me to my next question, where I think you're about to go. You highlighted the work of the Community Grants Committee in your testimony, and I'm very familiar with the work that you all do there. I'd love to give you an opportunity to talk about, how important the community grants are in terms of the city's ability, Events DC's ability to make equitable investments across all 8 wards of the District of Columbia. So if you could discuss that.
Well, first of all, we have to thank you because you have been a great help to us in many ways with helping to expand the community grants program that we've had. When I first came to Events DC, it was a very small program. It was a very small program. I think maybe $100,000 a year that we gave out in very small grants to really small programs, after-school programs that served maybe 20, 30 children, but yet a vital program for the neighborhood or for the school. We have expanded that with your help and with the help of the other board members to bring our grants program into not just giving the money, but helping to train the people who run these small programs how to apply. They have workshops where they bring them in, show them this is what you have to do, how to get a clean hands certificate, how to qualify. And this had never been done before. And for me, it's been a real pleasure to watch this.
Appreciate that. Councilmember Fruman?
Thank you very much. I'm not going to have a lot of questions. I came to thank you for your service, both on the Events DC board and all the other things that you do, including support for our first responders and police. So really so grateful to you for everything that you've done and will do going forward. We'll ask just a couple of questions because one thing, and I don't know, I guess I could get my dates mixed up, but another Events DC project that I think is very exciting is the fields at RFK. And was that under while you were on the board?
Absolutely. It is an unbelievable program. There was nothing there. And those fields are full every day and every night. And I think it's just a wonderful resource for our city. And we unanimously approved the construction of those fields and activated them, and it has been a real pleasure to watch that.
And I mean, I think it is an extraordinary model and one with the shortage of fields that we experience around the city, and the role that Events DC can play. Would Events DC entertain other projects like that if there were opportunities in other parts of the city?
I think we certainly would like to. I think it depends on all the things that are going to happen around the RFK site. I will tell you that we have people that call us all the time wanting pickleball courts. They want a rugby field. They want, there's never a shortage of a wish list of what we would like to be able to do.
I hear you on that. And one reason for that is Events DC can be nimble in a way that it's more of a challenge for the full district government too. And so you become a go-to for ideas like that. And I do hope that the board will lean into things like that, opportunities like the fields at RFK. I guess I'll just observe everything old is new again. Now here you are working on RFK, and what's the big Events DC project?
Yes.
Parking.
My favorite subject.
All right, well, we have a specialist. Thank you very much for your service. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Just a couple more questions. Thank you, Councilmember Fruman. In your testimony, you also wrote that sports and entertainment are drivers for community engagement, development, and pride. And so I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about some of the initiatives that you view as most important for strengthening the role that sports plays in the District of Columbia over the next few years. Kind of a softball question there, but given that the council just voted to make the District of Columbia the sports capital of the United States, I thought I'd I'd ask that and let you talk about some of the things that you have done and maybe that Events DC will be doing soon.
Well, I'll refer back to what Councilmember Freeman said. We are a nimble board. We are able, because of the way we are funded and because of the way we are able to operate, we are in a position to do things that other people in the district are not, other boards and commissions cannot easily do. And I think that goes back many, many, many years to the enactment of the hospitality tax. And I will tell you, I'm so old and have been here so long. I remember, because my late husband was a part of that at the old Washington Convention and Visitors Association. And I remember when that was enacted, and it was not easy to get that. But the whole purpose of that stream of funding is to be able to do the things that Events DC strives to do for the city. It's the whole reason we're there. And the convention center, we host meetings and the people come and they go and they see our city and they want to come back. But more importantly than that, what we are able to do for the people who live here, reside here, send their children to school here, raise their families in the city. That's our focus. And I think we want to try to do as much as possible as we can for the people whose home is the District of Columbia in all 8 wards.
Thank you for that. That's my last question. I don't know if you had any additional questions, Councilmember Freeman.
Not a question. I just want to put a bee in your bonnet. So one of the things that I've spoken to Events DC about and the waterfront bid about is the idea that we should have a crew regatta like the Head of the Charles or Stotesbury in Philadelphia that could attract thousands of people from the East Coast to participate. We could call it the Douglas Commonwealth Regatta, and then all the high school kids who came could say, why are they calling it the Douglas Commonwealth Regatta? Events DC has expressed some interest in it. I hope I can win your support for that idea.
We'll keep that in mind.
I appreciate you raising that, actually. I think it's a conversation I'd love to have with you and maybe some of our colleagues about expanding the opportunities for DC public school students to actually participate in crew. The last time I chatted with DC SAA, I believe we had one DC public school crew team that both of us know in your ward, happens to be my alma mater, but there are a number of independent schools in the area, private schools that do have crew teams. And so I like the idea. I think it's a great idea in terms of the crew regatta, and love to chat with you more about that. Thank you. Anything else you'd like to add to the record before we turn to our next nominee?
No, just thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it very much.
And thank you for your willingness to continue serving.
Thank you.
Next, proposed resolution 26-230, the Director of the Alcoholic Beverage and Cannabis Administration, Frederick P. Musali, confirmation resolution of 2025 was introduced on June 13th, 2025 by Chairman Mendelson at the Office of the Secretary and referred to the Committee on Business and Economic Development on June 17th, 2025. This proposed resolution would confirm the reappointment of Frederick P. Musali as Director of the Alcoholic Beverage and Cannabis Administration for a 4-year term ending on July 14th, 2029. Mr. Musali has served as the Director of APCA, as it's known, since 2009, following service as Interim Director earlier that year. He previously served as the agency's General Counsel from 2001 to 2009, and earlier as an Assistant Corporation Counsel with the Office of the Corporation Counsel, currently known as the Office of the Attorney General. Under his leadership, APCA has received national recognition, including the National Liquor Law Enforcement Association's Agency of the Year in 2018, and the Innovative Alcohol Law Enforcement Program of the Year in 2009. 2017, and 2020. Mr. Musali received a Bachelor of Science in Political Science and History from James Madison University and a Juris Doctor from the Catholic University. He is a Ward 3 resident. There were no public witnesses who signed up to testify, so we're going to begin with hearing from Director Musali. As I do in all instances, if you don't mind standing and raising your right hand, be sworn in. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to provide to the Council of the District of Columbia and the Committee on Business and Economic Development is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. It's good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning.
You can begin your testimony whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairperson McDuffie, Councilmember Freeman. Thank you for being here today. Committee members, committee staff, and members of the public. My name is Fred Musali, and I am honored to appear before the committee today to seek your confirmation to the position of Director of the Alcoholic Beverage and Cannabis Administration for another 4-year term. I've had the privilege to serve as APCA's director in this wonderful city since July 2009. I would like to thank the members of the Alcoholic Beverage and Cannabis Board for their decision to reappoint me for an additional 4-year term. I would also like to thank Mayor Muriel E. Bowser and her staff for sending my nomination to the council for consideration. I am honored to have the opportunity to serve the residents of the District of Columbia. Before I start, I would like to thank Chairperson McDuffie and other council members and his staff for their legislative support of the district's medical, cannabis, and alcohol programs during the last 4 years. With the committee's help in working collaboratively with the executive to legislatively enact a level playing field, the medical cannabis program has made great strides over the past year. Of note, medical cannabis retail sales were over 5.4 million per month for the last 5 consecutive months, from April 2025 to August of 2025. By way of comparison, prior to March 2025, medical cannabis retail sales had not been above 3 million in a single month since December 2023. With regard to the district's alcohol program, we appreciate the committee working collaboratively with the executive to legislatively extend the current alcohol streetery endorsement on an emergency basis through December 31st, 2025. We look forward to working with the committee on the pending permanent alcohol streetery endorsement legislation. Today, I would like to discuss with the committee, 1, several of the agency's significant accomplishments, and 2, 4 of my priorities should my nomination be confirmed for an additional 4-year term. First, the 3 specific areas that I would like to highlight regarding the agency's accomplishments are 1, improvements to the medical cannabis program, 2, alcohol enforcement, and 3, extended hours alcohol licensing during special events. First, with regard to the medical cannabis program, APCA was successfully able to transition unlicensed cannabis businesses to the legal cannabis market by the statutory March 31, 2025 deadline. This transition resulted in numerous small businesses becoming licensed and opening as medical cannabis retailers. Of note, 64 licensed medical cannabis retailers made sales to registered patients in July 2025, compared to only 6 medical cannabis retailers making sales to registered patients in March of 2024. In working with medical cannabis retailers, APCA was able to successfully implement the delivery endorsement, education tasting endorsement, safe use treatment facility endorsement, and summer garden endorsement that were all part of the Medical Cannabis Amendment Act of 2022 that took effect on March 22nd, 23. Just as important, the district's first medical cannabis testing lab was issued a license on August 16th, 2024. This was a significant step for patient health and safety, as medical cannabis products are required to be tested prior to being sold by a licensed cultivation center or manufacturer to a licensed retailer or internet retailer. Finally, APCA, working with the board, was able to promote patient access in all 8 wards by making medical cannabis patient registrations available to district residents at no cost. Second, with regard to APCA's enforcement accomplishments, the agency exceeded all of its alcohol enforcement goals in FY25. This included APCA's enforcement division conducting 414 SOTA minor compliance checks through July of 2025. Additionally, as of July 31, 2025, APCA's alcohol enforcement division conducted 13,966 regulatory inspections and investigations. In FY25, APCA's Alcohol Enforcement Division placed a significant emphasis on after-hours violations, which resulted in multiple cases being submitted to the board for appropriate enforcement action. APCA's Alcohol Enforcement Division has also continued to play a critical role in addressing quality of life issues and administrative violations as part of the district's multi-agency nightlife task force along the H Street Northeast and U Street Northwest corridors. Third, I wanted to highlight the agency's success with regard to licensing on-premise alcohol establishments for extended hours during special events. Specifically, the agency has been able to successfully implement DC Law 26-006, the On-Premises and On-Site Extended Hours Program Amendment Act of 2025, which was introduced by Councilmember Kenyon McDuffie and took effect on a permanent basis on June 10th, 2025. The legislation allows the board to extend the hours of operation and on-premise alcohol sales for sporting events, cultural events, and tourism-related events without the need for additional council approval. This legislation has benefited the district and been effectively utilized by our agency to extend hours for such special events as Art All Night 2025, World Pride 2025, and the 2025 FIFA Club World Cup. In implementing the legislation, APCA coordinates with and sends the list of participating establishments to the Metropolitan Police Department. Second, I would like to discuss 4 of my priorities should my nomination be confirmed for an additional 4-year term. First, to modernize the district's alcohol and medical cannabis laws. I intend to work collaboratively with the board, the executive, and the committee to modernize the district's alcohol and medical cannabis laws in a manner that balances doing business in the district while also promoting public health and safety for district residents and visitors. APCA has worked collaboratively with the board on a significant number of legislative proposals for introduction in FY26 that are consistent with this objective. With regard to the district's alcohol laws, our agency is working with the executive on omnibus alcohol legislation for introduction in the fall of 2025. As noted earlier, APCA also remains committed to working with the committee on the Streetery Program and Protest Process Amendment Act of 2025, which was introduced by Chairman Mendelson at the request of the mayor on February 27, 2025, which would make the existing alcohol streetery endorsement permanent and create a 45-day public comment period. With regard to medical cannabis laws, APCA is working on beverage legislation that would make it easier for medical cannabis manufacturers to make cannabis beverages for sale at medical cannabis retailers and internet retailers. APCA is also working with the board on proposed rules that would clarify the types of non-cannabis products that can be sold at a medical cannabis retailer. APCA also remains committed to working with the committee on the Medical Cannabis Retailer Craft Preparation Endorsement Act of 2025, which was introduced by Chairman Mendelson at the request of the mayor on May 22nd, 2025, which would create a new medical cannabis retailer craft preparation endorsement. Second, implement games of skill and commercial bingo BSA subtitles. As the committee is aware, APCA is tasked with implementing the game of skill and commercial bingo subtitles contained in the fiscal year 2026 Budget Support Act of 2025, which was signed by Mayor Bowser on September 4th, 2025 on an emergency basis and is scheduled to take effect on October 1, 2025. APCA's implementation of the game of skill subtitle will benefit both small businesses and the public, as retailers will now only need to receive approval from one district government agency instead of 2 to offer games of skill machines. Previously, retailers also needed to receive approval from the Office of Lottery and Gaming. As APCA director, I'm committed to ensuring a smooth transition for existing OLG Game of Skill retailer license holders to APCA in implementing this statutory change. With regard to commercial bingo, APCA is currently working collaboratively with the Office of Lottery and Gaming to implement the commercial bingo subtitle. Third, unveil APCA's new online computer system. APCA staff have been working diligently over the past year on the agency's new computer system that will be unveiled in FY26. The new online system will significantly streamline and enhance the public's and both alcohol and medical cannabis licensees' ability to interact with our agency online. This includes making it easier to file online business applications and get managers' employees registered with our agency. Additionally, the new system includes a new medical cannabis patient registration system that will make it easier for both district residents and non-residents to register as a patient. And then finally, continue building APCA's Cannabis Enforcement Division. My final goal is to continue building APCA's Cannabis Enforcement Division. Between July 15th, 2024 and September 11th, 2025, APCA, in coordination with the Metropolitan Police Department, has summarily closed and padlocked 72 unlicensed cannabis businesses. I would note as of today, that number is 75. APCA intends to hire for its 2 remaining cannabis enforcement vacancies during the first quarter of FY26. This will allow APCA to increase the frequency of inspections at both licensed medical cannabis businesses and unlicensed cannabis businesses in FY26. This concludes my prepared remarks. I thank the committee for its consideration of my nomination. I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Director, I do have some questions. I think I'll use my first round to go over the standard questions that we ask of all nominees who appear before the committee. Are you a district resident? And if confirmed, do you intend to reside in the District of Columbia for the entirety of your appointment?
I am currently a district resident, and I do intend to remain a district resident for the entirety of my term.
Okay. What ward do you currently reside in?
I live in Ward 3. Councilmember Freeman is my council member.
Yep. Have you been or are you a member of any District of Columbia board or commission currently?
No.
Do you currently hold any other office or employment in the District of Columbia government or outside the District of Columbia government?
Not other than this current position.
Do you or any member of your immediate family have any interest, financial or otherwise, that may directly or indirectly pose a conflict of interest for you in the performance of your duties?
No, neither myself or my family.
Thank you. Do you have any outstanding liability for taxes, fees, or other payments to the district, federal, state, or other local government, either contested or uncontested?
I do not, neither contested or uncontested, no.
As you mentioned, the Alcoholic Beverage and Cannabis Board voted 5-0 to reappoint you in April 2025. Outside of annual reporting requirements, the only other statute-specific requirement for your position is that you are required to appoint an employee to be a community resource officer to serve as the primary contact for members of the community, both residents and businesses, wishing to submit complaints or to protest a license. Have you appointed this employee, and if so, who's in that position?
Sure, I have made that appointment. That appointment is Sarah Weniger, who is currently also a Ward 3 resident. And she has been in that position for quite a while. She does a great job working with the Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commissions and ANCs. She's been an invaluable resource. She's been in that position for a number of years. And has been an invaluable resource for ANCs, community organizations, other groups about the alcohol and medical cannabis protest process, among other things.
Okay. You laid out some goals in your testimony that you just provided, and I appreciate those, and I'll probably dive into some of that a little later. But the committee last held a public roundtable for your reappointment as director of APCA in 2021. At that roundtable, you testified that the 3 goals for your current term were to work with the committee to make statutory changes to extend the period of time a medical cannabis patient card is valid, ensure that the district has quality testing for medical cannabis, and expand the diversity of ownership in the district's medical cannabis industry. How have you met those goals, and what are you most proud of accomplishing over the course of your current term?
Thank you, Chairman, for that reminder. First off, you talked about the patient card, talked about when I was here on 2021 about increasing the medical cannabis card from 1 year to 2 year. I'm happy to say in working with the committee, we did that, and that's made a huge difference. So I appreciate the council for that. That's made it easier for patients, not having to renew their card as often, made it easier to do business with the district, obviously been helpful to staff. So as you mentioned, the testimony talked about a 2-year card that is currently in effect, and I want to thank the committee for that. Second, we talked about robust testing. So if we're going to have cannabis enforcement, we're going to talk about safe product, we had to have robust testing. And I'm pleased to report that on August 16, 2024, the district's first testing lab, which has been a huge success, has been open for over a year now, has gone well, has been great in terms of ensuring that all the product from a medical cannabis manufacturer or cultivation center is tested at that lab. We do have a couple other conditional testing lab licenses that may come to fruition, but I'm happy to report we have robust testing at our testing lab that is able to handle all the volume and any more volume that we have. So that's been great. And then third, I think you guys, the council deserves credit because, as you know, we only had 6 licensed dispensaries, which was not enough. We currently now have 64 operating dispensaries. We worked with the committee, as you know, and the council to allow unlicensed businesses to transition by that March 31st, 2025 statutory deadline, which happened. And now we're up to 64 that are open. I think the other important thing to mention, what makes us unique, which the committee, the council, and get credit, is we have a unique medical cannabis market where we have small businesses and minority-owned business, women-owned business that are operating our cannabis business. When you go to other jurisdiction, there are these big cannabis companies, corporations. We don't have that with, very limited circumstances of what you consider big. It's all small businesses. And we've had that opportunity to be unique. And it's really powerful and really touching when you see all these businesses that have opened. Now, there's always more work to be done legislatively and improving the process. But as I stated, we've gone from sales that were under $3 million a month to over $5.4 million a month, right? So we've almost doubled sales because those sales were well under $3 million. So we've almost doubled sales a month. You're talking about, going from 30-some million dollars of sales a year to over 60, $70 million sales in a year, right? And the program is doing that. So I think that's really powerful as it relates to the opportunities that have been made for small businesses.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I appreciate you talking about the uniqueness of DC's medical cannabis market. In my next round, I want to talk specifically about cannabis. And then perhaps you alluded to some of the bigger sort of corporate outfits in other jurisdictions. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts, whether you have thoughts on the competition it creates for DC being such a small, unique, medical cannabis only market. Other places have, adult use markets. We do not, we cannot. So I want to hear your thoughts about that in my next round. But right now, I'm going to turn to Councilmember Fruman for a round.
Thank you very much, Chairman McDuffie. I'm going to be in this area, and I hope it's not duplicative of, at a minimum, is helpful to you as you go into the next round, which I'm going to be very curious to hear your round on this topic. I mean, we do have, first, thank you very much again for your service. It's Ward 3 Day. 2 great public servants. Mr. Masali, you have been incredibly responsive for 15 years in this role. I think I've never come upon anybody who said anything other than he was really helpful. So you don't always give people the answers that they want, but you give clear answers, and you're very accessible. So very grateful to you for your work.
Thank you.
The cannabis market is complicated. That does feel like a little bit of an understatement, and you reviewed some of it already, but so 64 dispensaries authorized so far. What does the distribution of those dispensaries look like? How many, is it 8 in each ward? Are they denser in one part of the city than another?
Sure. Yeah, I'd say they're denser more in commercial wards, like wards 2, 6, 1. We do have a breakdown. I don't have it in front of me, but we do have that. So I think a couple of things to keep in mind. You can't have a retailer be within 400 feet of another retailer, right? So that's your one rule. 2, in working with the council, we increased the distance requirement from schools and rec centers from 300 feet to 400 feet, right? It used to be 300. I think at the end of 2024, we increased that to 400. So you can't now be within 400 feet of a school or another rec center. I think the other thing to keep in mind is we do not have any open application periods, and we do not plan to have any more for retailers. So if you have not applied for a retailer license already, then we do not plan to make any more available. I think the other thing is neighborhoods, just so you're aware, do have the ability under the statute after a year, which we've had, to request moratoriums. So that is another, in terms of certain wards or neighborhoods.
Okay, so there's no more opportunity to apply for a license. So do you think that with 64, we can fully meet demand?
So the thing, council member, just so you know, is that even though we do not have any more open application periods, we had what was called a conditional license people could apply for, where they had 2 years to apply, find a location. So you do still have, while it has definitely slowed down, you do still have individuals applying for licenses and getting placarded. So you just can't get, nobody can apply new.
But you have a pool of people who have a conditional license that are not among the 64 who could perfect that license by finding a location. And how many folks do you have in that category?
I don't have that in front of me, but it's between 100 and 200, so it's a lot.
Oh, so there's no new applications, but could be between 100 and 200 new dispensaries that could be located within
In
2 years.
theory.
Within 2 years? How long does that last?
Yeah, it's within 2 years of board approval.
And so are you still approving those conditional licenses?
So basically, they've pretty much all been approved at this point. It's just they have to find a location within 2 years.
Can somebody apply for a conditional license at this point, or is
No.
that also closed? Okay, so the pool of potential folks. And then in terms of the unlicensed operations, which are, quite problematic, and you just moved, do you feel that you've closed all of those at this point, or do you feel like there's still a significant number that you're going to want to see closed?
Sure. So as I mentioned, as of today, we've closed 75. We have several more that we're working with the OAG, and we'll be working with MPD to close. What I would say is this. It's very difficult right now in the district to just find an illegal storefront. There's always exceptions, but they're very limited. Most of the online illegal activity is curbside pickup and delivery, where it's online and then you meet somebody at a location to either have it delivered to your home or curbside pickup. We've been working at that curbside pickup. I don't want to get too much into what we have, but that's kind of what we've been getting into. But the amount of storefronts currently open is very, very, very limited.
So one last question in this area. So there was a time where we had a significant volume that was being sold through unlicensed operations, and then we're doing this transition and we have our licensed operations. Do you have a sense of how big that volume was before we moved into licensed dispensaries, and how much of the demand is being absorbed by licensed dispensaries? The implication of that would be, if it was, you said $5 million a month is what we're up to, but if 5 years ago our thought was it was 10 million a month that was being sold through unlicensed dispensaries, vehicles, and now 5 million of it is being sold through licensed dispensaries, then presumably there's 5 million out there that's being sold that isn't being regulated. Do you have any sense of how much of the market we've been able to cover through the dispensaries that are out there yet?
Sure. Well, first off, like I said, we've already closed 75 places, right? So even though we've closed 75, there were many more than 75 because you had a number of establishments that transitioned from the unlicensed market by the March 31st, 2025 statutory deadline, right? So they were unlicensed and now they're part of that 64, right? Because there was a legislation that allowed them transition. Second, there's a number of folks that just said, hey, look, with everything going on, I don't want to be in the DC illegal market anymore, and they closed voluntarily, right? So, you clearly had, well over 100 stores operating illegally. Like I said, sales have gone from under 3 million to at least 5.4 million. We had as high as 5.7 million in a month. That is definitely attributed to having more stores and enforcement, right? Enforcement in more stores has done that. So in terms of the rest of the market, what I'd say is, which the chairman may ask me about, the big issue right now is Maryland, right? So Maryland has adult cannabis sales. We don't. So you do have a certain portion of individuals who maybe they work for the federal government or what have you, but they don't want to get registered, right? They do not want to register as a patient. And so they either will go to Maryland or they'll continue to buy illegally because they don't want to register as a patient. So obviously we can't control Maryland, but we continue to do enforcement of unlicensed cannabis folks, try to make it as easy as possible within reason to register as a patient. So I would tell you going from under 3 million to over 5.4 million for 5 months in a row is huge. There's always room for improvement and we'll continue to do that. But I think we're heading in the right direction.
All right, great. Well, I've gone well over, so I will turn it back to the chairman and I may have one more round.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fruman. I wanted to go back to a question around licenses. You mentioned in your testimony, and Councilmember Fruman asked about retailers. How many retailer licenses have you all issued to date?
So we, as of in July of 2025, we had 64 retailers that were open and operating and selling.
Okay, and then what's the distribution, generally speaking, across wards?
Sure. Most of the licenses are in wards 1, 2, and 6,
Okay.
Kind of in the downtown areas. We have very few licenses in 7 or 8. It's pretty much mostly 1, 2, and 6.
And to what do you attribute that?
A couple factors. I think when we had unlicensed establishments transition, those were the neighborhoods they were in. They were not in 7 or 8. So that was a big part of them trying to stay in neighborhoods that they were already in. And then I think also businesses are looking to be near commercial corridors and, where there's the most traffic.
Got it. Cultivation licenses, how many of those are there?
I think we provided that to the committee. So we have that there. I think it's 8 top of my head that are open.
That's fine.
I think there's another 8 or so that are in various stages that are in build out. So one of the things, we have talked to the committee about is extending the conditional license period by 1 more year because we have folks that are under construction, including in Ward 5, that have spent a significant amount of money that are on the table to be open within the next 6 months. And so we're trying to make sure that those licenses are able to come to fruition.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, so I appreciate you preempting my question and answering that. That's a very important point, and so I wanted to just make sure that I got a chance. I know this isn't a oversight hearing; it's a nomination a roundtable, but I know this is something that the emergency that the executive has sent down for the council's next legislative meeting to extend the conditional license for prospective medical cannabis businesses for 1 more year is something that's going to come up soon. So I did want to give you a chance to speak to that.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. What generally speaking, what's the distribution of the 8 cultivation centers across the district? The ones
So,
that have been approved?
so the way it works things through industrial zone, the majority are in Ward 5. There's some, I believe, in Ward 7. The way the district's manufacturing zones are, they're pretty much all 4, 7, and 8. There's no manufacturing zones like in Ward 3. So they're all pretty much spread out in 4, 5, and 7.
All right. And then in terms of the manufacturing licenses, again, just, I'm not going to hold you to it. I know you perhaps didn't prepare for all these questions, but how many manufacturer's licenses have you all issued?
It's about the same. So most of the cultivation centers have manufacturing licenses with some exceptions. And then you have DC Extracts, which, which is in Ward 5. I think some of them are in Chillum. You have Pink Fox, which is up over in Ivy City, near Fenwick. So they're in Ivy City.
Okay.
Yeah, so there.
There's only one testing lab so far?
Yeah, there's one testing lab that's open and operational. We have 2 that have conditional licenses, but they're not open. But the current testing lab is able to handle demand, and I think they're only at about 20, 30% capacity. So they have a lot of room to
That
go.
was my next question. So do you anticipate the 2 that have conditional licenses actually moving forward with, opening up testing labs?
That's the hope. It's hard to say. I mean, I think, the way we look at it, it'd be nice to have 2 testing labs, but I think that's all we need.
Okay.
We don't really need 2, but until we get a second one operational, we have it. The people can apply for a testing lab right now.
So I appreciate you providing some of the data. The numbers are encouraging in terms of the growth in the industry and the enforcement that you all have been doing, and how you all have stepped it up. I appreciate that you're going to be hiring for the 2 vacancies that you currently have. Certainly, I imagine need those to continue to beef up enforcement. Talk to me generally about what you're hearing on the ground about the district's market and any competitive advantages or disadvantages to doing cannabis business, medical cannabis business in the District of Columbia. Because I've heard that it's been a challenge, given what's happening around the district, in particular in Maryland, in terms of pricing, availability, different strands and things like that. Just what are you hearing, generally speaking, about the
Sure.
market today?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. So we do keep the ear to the ground. This is obviously something near and dear to my heart. So what I would say is this. I would say that while we've come a long, long way and we're in a much better place than we were, there's always more work to do. I think the biggest challenge is Maryland. That's just the number one challenge. When Maryland had adult sales, this is to the Councilmember Freeman's point, when Maryland had adult sales, you saw the sales in the district decrease, right? Top of my head, I think it was, to answer your question, council member, we lost about $400,000 to $500,000 a month in sales drop once Maryland got going. So, maybe that's whatever, like $5 million a year or whatever that is. So you notice that drop of about $400,000, $500,000 in sale a month, pretty much attributed to Maryland, right? So we have to be, because we can only have medical sales, our program has to be as flexible and willing to change as possible to make those adjustments. So what I would say to you, Chair and Councilmember Freeman, is a couple of things. One is we need to increase product variety. That is a key. And so that's one of the reasons we're asking for the 1-year unconditional license, because we need to get these additional cultivation centers and manufacturers open. Because what happened, as you recall, we had all these retailers that had to open by March 31st. So we got them open, we got them transitioned, okay? Now we need to increase the variety of types of products that we can offer. That's one of the reasons we have the craft manufacturing bill that's in front of you, because that's going to allow retailers to distinguish themselves from a brand perspective, right? So that's why you have that. And then you'll also see coming, which is on us, a beverage bill, which is designed to do medical cannabis beverages, because that's something that currently we do not have in the district, that other jurisdictions have, that a number of our retailers are offering. The other thing I mentioned in my testimony to help the market is allow them to sell non-cannabis related products at the same time while balancing public safety, making sure you're not letting minors, in where the cannabis is and stuff like that. But some of the requests we've had have been to be able to sell like a bottle of water or be able to sell prepackaged food. So that was one of the things we're looking at. When we looked at other jurisdictions, there's some jurisdictions that have very good rules on this issue. So we kind of looked at that. So how can we help our existing retailers sell other types of products, also continue to thrive in the medical cannabis market? That's one of the reasons why we're making changes to the online patient system. The easier it is to register, the better it's going to be.
And I'm over my time, but I just have really two brief questions before, and I also want to extend just in case a member of the committee joins us. But the changes you're making in terms of the online registration system, how is it going to make it more efficient for patients? And how does that compare to the process for people in Maryland? My understanding, or at least what I've heard anecdotally, is that it's a lot easier for people to purchase cannabis in Maryland, and they can do so in a way that is a little bit more opaque. It's not the right word, because you want there to be some level of transparency, but there also are some privacy concerns that people have as well. So just to talk briefly, if you could, very briefly, about those types of changes. And then also, so how does that compare to what the process is in Maryland, to your knowledge?
Yeah, sure. Well, Maryland has adult cannabis sales, so the advantage they have is all you have to do is show an ID, right, and be 21. So as long as we have a congressional rider in effect, that is going to be somewhat of an issue. But in terms of how we can improve the process, is making it easier for existing dispensaries to register patients. So when you go to CVS, Walgreens, whatever it is, you have you're still getting medicine. You're still having a process there where you're being asked for ID. You're signing a waiver, that you're using these for medical purposes or what have you. But it's a much easier process. And it's something, in talking to the retailers, that they're interested in, is making it easier to help them help the patient get registered, right? So I think that's the big change. Until we have adult sales, we're not going to be in a position where we can just ask somebody for their driver's license and that's it.
Right. I'm going to go to my colleagues. I do have one more question, but I'll wait till my last round. We've been joined by Ward 2 Councilmember Brooke Pinto. Good morning to you. I'm going to turn to you for a round.
Great. Good morning, and thank you so much, Chairman McDuffie. Nice to see you, Director.
Good to see you.
So I have a couple of questions. I first would love to get an update on how the cannabis enforcement mission is going. And last year, the council changed the rules around the level of involvement that council members can participate in when it comes to protest. And so as you're engaging in both a review of applications for new cannabis establishments, but also the enforcement, I'm curious how you have incorporated possible security and safety concerns in that analysis, especially given our ability to protest or write a letter on these things has been curtailed.
Sure. Thank you for that question, council member. So as of today, we've closed 75 unlicensed cannabis establishments. I think you probably recall there were, whether it was between 100 or 200 or whatever, we had a significant amount of unlicensed brick and mortar stores that were operating unlicensed. And I think you can see a dramatic difference in the city today, where it's very hard to find an unlicensed store, right? We still have places scheduled to be closed, but it's a much more undercover operation where you have to know somebody and, kind of form a relationship or know a password or whatever it is. It's just harder to walk off the street and buy, right? So We're focusing a lot on curbside pickup. You still get a lot because of the internet where it's like, hey, meet me at this location or online. So we're still doing enforcement. It is not slowed down. It has changed. Our method of enforcement has had to change as the unlicensed market has changed. But I will tell you the number of thank yous, appreciations from ANC commissioners, residents, in terms of the number of stores we've closed in improving neighborhoods has been significant, right? So that's really good. To your point, we have gotten feedback, individual letters from council members. Under the process, we're required to notify council members. So we do that out of an abundance of caution. I think we send it to all the council, but we have noticed that. We have gotten letters, do get feedback on that. I think a couple of changes have been significant that are important. One is we increased who could file a protest. So you've seen that difference. Before it was only an affected ANC. Now it's residents who are abutting or across the street. So you've seen more involvement from residents. So that's been a big change. The other big change that we implemented that's been significant, I don't know if you remember, but we increased the distance you have to be from a school or rec center from 300 to 400 feet, right? So that's been a big change. And so that's been implemented. And we've been following that. So that's another big change that we remember at the end of last year that we had. So that's been a big change as well. I think as I just talked about earlier, we don't have any more open application periods. We're not accepting any more open application periods for any license other than a testing lab. But we do have the conditional licenses where they had 2 years to find a location. So those folks can still open. But we're not allowing any more retail applications.
Okay, thank you for that update. And I want to ask you a little bit about our nude dancing licenses.
Okay.
So DC Code 25-374 says no license shall be transferred to any premises which is located, and then there are 2 prongs. First, 600 feet or less from another licensee operating under 25-371B, and second, that is 600 feet from a building with a certificate of occupancy for residential use or a lot or building with a permit from the Department of Buildings for residential construction at the premises. Are you familiar of the transfer of the nude dancing license for CLO's Angels to 1815 M Street Northwest in ANC 2B?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the application, yes.
Okay, can you share any information about the business's compliance with those standards for both what seems to be a violation of its distance from residential and other nude dancing establishments?
Sure. So this application was placarded. And after hearings before the board decided to placard the application after multiple hearings. After being placarded, a settlement agreement was submitted by NC2B. So they reached a settlement agreement. We received multiple, I don't want to say motions, briefs on this issue. The board did. They're the decision maker on this because it's a contested case. And they, real quick, and I'll let you talk. They'll be issuing a decision addressing that issue. So this issue that you're raising was raised with the board, and they'll issue an order on it. And then once an order is issued, any interested party, I guess, will have 10 days, depending what the board does, which I'm not aware of, but should come out today.
Okay. And I'm sorry, Chairman, do you mind if I just ask one more follow-up on this?
Without objection. Sure.
Thank you. I guess this seemed different to me because I read this statute as a threshold question. So not a question that the board would consider as it went through its normal process, but that the threshold of are you within 600 feet of a residence or another nude dancing establishment would mean that the application could not even proceed to the next level of analysis. And so it sounds kind of what you're saying is that it's going through the normal process and that's one of the considerations. But if that's the case, then why have the statute lay out what the qualifications are?
Sure. Yeah, maybe I should take a step back. So the board initially on those threshold questions had hearings and got arguments, motions, whatever on that issue. So the board actually held a hearing on that threshold question you're asking. After holding hearings, getting briefed, looking at the issue, they decided to placard the application, not close the door on members of the public making their own arguments on the issue, and hearing those arguments so that they could weigh in. So the board did look at it before placarding it and saying, hey, look, should we placard this? Heard from the public, heard from licensee, applicant, whoever, hold hearings, looked at it, said, hey, look, got some interesting arguments here. Let's placard it and make sure everybody has an opportunity to weigh in.
Okay. I think I respectfully disagree with the board's assessment on that threshold question. But we'll look forward to their review today, and maybe we can continue our discussion on this.
Happy to continue the discussion. Thank you.
Thanks,
Councilmember.
Director. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councilmember Fruman. Final round.
Thank you very much. So Councilmember Chair McDuffie asked about what are you hearing ear to the ground about the marketplace? And I'll tell you one of the things that I've heard about the marketplace for cannabis, and maybe it's old, maybe it's a year ago, but there was concern among medical cannabis licensees about supply, that there wasn't going to be enough production in the district to supply them, as they then were going to be competing with other potential sources. Sounds like we've added some production facilities. Where are we in terms of production capacity and sales? Is there a match between our production capacity and sales? Or are we lagging on that question, or do we have excess production capacity? How does that look today?
Sure. That's a great question. And I think one of the points I wanted to make, which kind of goes to your question, is one of the importance of getting these additional cultivation centers open. One is product variety, but it's also bringing the prices down. Because right now, the way, in terms of how the market's changed, you only had 6 retailers, right? And so that was pretty much, they had a lot more leverage in terms of being able to, buy at lower prices from the cultivation centers. Now the cultivation centers have the leverage because now they just 6, customers they have to rely on, 6 dispensaries, right? There's 64. So you have a lot more demand for product, to answer your question. So what I would say is that the cultivation centers have been ramping up production to meet demand. I would say that popular items sell out. So from a supply issue, production continues to increase to satisfy demand. Is there product available? Yes. I think the popular items continue to sell out. I think in the district, just so you know, pre-rolls and vape cartridges are 2 of the very, very items that sell out quick. So what have we seen? We've seen a dramatic increase in pre-roll production. Vape cartridge production is also been increasing and continuing to increase. So I think you're right. But I think it's also, it's a pricing issue where we need more cultivation centers and manufacturers to help with price, because one of the complaints we get from folks that were in the I-71 market that transitioned is they're used to paying less, right? So now they have to pay more. But now, hey, we have tested regulated product. But I think as we get more product, more variety, prices will come down. But to answer your question, we're definitely not at a position where we have excess production, right?
Okay, so that really was my question, because that was the thing that I was hearing about.
There's no excess production. I mean, things are selling out quickly. Orders are getting filled, but there's like a certain day of the week that product's made available, and if you're going to get it, you probably need to get it that day.
Yeah, and so, I mean, it's an interesting market because the production is regulated, the sales are regulated, and if it falls out of equilibrium, there's a question of who's making money in this. And I've heard from retailers that for a period of time, they had a very difficult time staying afloat. Maybe the production facilities are doing very well because you got high demand and limited supply, but getting to an equilibrium, ordinarily the marketplace would do that, but I think it falls to you.
Yeah, so to answer your question, I mean, just kind of look at it like this, and that's why we're asking conditional license extension. You have a situation by March 31st, all the unlicensed folks have to transition to the legal market, right? So you got all these retailers that are coming into the legal market. You need the cultivation centers and manufacturers, right, to ramp up to meet that additional retailer stores coming in. And that has happened, right? We have additional manufacturers and cultivation centers. From an investment perspective, it's really good. We've just approved, folks are investing in the district to expand their facilities, add flower rooms, add production. So I think what you're going to see, to answer your question, is over the next 6 months, you're going to see that balance out, where the manufacturing cultivation center production, which is increasing, is going to be balancing out over the 6 months to meet the number of retailers we have.
Okay, well, I think that is a thing I'm going to want to follow, and
Sure.
And I think from the retailer perspective, there's almost please don't open more retailers and increase demand on limited production, because that can result in the existing retailers sinking like a stone. So it's a tricky thing. Regulating markets we want to stay away from it, but this is one where we absolutely have to. But getting a balance right. To what extent do you look at the financials of your production facilities and your retailers to see how they're doing and to monitor whether or not the regulation of the market is working from a financial perspective?
So we look at all that. So just so you know, we put together a monthly report. We have an internal one that has all the financial information. And then we have a public report that goes on our website that we send to the committee every month, that talks about, shows how the market's doing without the financials. But internally, we have the financials. And so we thoroughly review that, because it shows us the health of the market, who's doing well. I'm not going to get too much into it, but it also leads to enforcement tips, because you can look at things and see if things don't look right. But we look at that because it gives us a sense of where we're going, right? So, like, to your point, or my point, it's like where we are now, we've hit over 5.4 million in retail sales 5 months in a row, right? So it's like, how do we continue to go higher? What needs to happen? How do we look at it from that too?
Yeah, it all goes to, and I'll wind up, is the achievement of an equilibrium that's fair. If you're looking at those financials and you see production facilities on average are making 50% profit and retailers are not making any kind of profit, there's a problem. You may not be able to share that information, although at a high level, a summary level, I would be curious to know, what's the rate of return for our production sector and what's the rate of return for our retail sector? Are those numbers that are public?
Those are not public numbers. We can have a offline conversation about what we can get you. I'm happy to have that conversation. I think as we have the craft preparation bill currently here and other legislation, we look at the council, want to have that conversation. What I would tell you is it's an area that I care about and I'm concerned about and looking to fix. And that's why we're doing what we can to get more, production to balance that out.
Okay, last thing, there's competition for the regulated sector, illegal sales, and I'm trying to wrap my head around how big is that. Might not, and you're not going to be able to answer that right now. And then there's Maryland, which I had not been thinking about as competition, but I hear you that for certain purchasers, more attractive place, and it may be that the pricing is lower there. Is their supply regulated and tested in the same way that's being sold through these adult shops in Maryland? Or is there the risk of untested, tainted product coming in, being consumed by district residents because of purchases from Maryland?
Well, Maryland has their product tested. A couple of the folks that we have operating in DC also do operate in Maryland. What I would tell you is the unlicensed product that's coming in the unlicensed market, it's mainly from like California, Michigan, West Coast. That's a lot of where the unlicensed product is coming from.
But, this was an area I was trying to get my arms around.
Sure.
How much of that, like, you don't know exactly because it's unlicensed and it's being done illegally, but you have a sense of, perhaps you have a sense, how big is that unlicensed market inside of the district, that illegal market inside of the district? Is it still, do you think it's still bigger than the medical cannabis market, or is it, what's your sense of how big that is?
Yeah, I mean, clearly at one time it clearly was bigger. Now, I don't know if that's much of an issue. What I would tell you, our bigger problem right now is Maryland. Maryland's the bigger issue. That's the bigger issue. I think if you look at, from a brick and mortar perspective, you know, for the most part, you have to go to a licensed regulated DC place, right? Most of the brick and mortar illegal places are closed. To answer your question, which I can't answer, is how much money these online businesses doing delivery to your house or curbside delivery, how big that is. I don't have those numbers. What I would say to you, without getting into too much information, is I'd probably be able to answer your question a lot better in a month or two, because I don't, enforcement wise, just so you know, when we go and padlock and close, we also seize product. So when we seize product, in terms of how much we seize and what's there, that'll give me a better picture, because we've kind of transitioned our enforcement efforts from brick and mortar, kind of looking more at curbside delivery. And that's going to give me a better feel of how much product is there.
So I've gone way over, but just one last comment. So from a financial perspective, I hear you that the Maryland is a bigger problem.
Correct.
From a public health perspective, this illegal market, because I hear about, you know, a bunch of kids at one of the elementary schools in Ward 3 took gummies, and then they went to the hospital and they were tested and there were traces of fentanyl in them. So we can't, that unlicensed market is scary for a different set of reasons, but I'll just leave you with that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's why we're not slowing down on enforcement anytime soon, council member.
Thank you very much, and apologies for going long.
No, no worries. Thank you, Councilmember Fruman. Just one or two last questions. Has a former employee, subordinate supervisor, or other person of interest ever filed a grievance against you in the course of your work? And if so, could you provide any details available about each such grievance and the status of any such matters?
Sure. Couple things. Yeah, one, I think in trying to be transparent with the committee on our oversight reports, we've tried to include that. So anything I'm going to talk about will, you know, be listed in our oversight responses that we just filed. Yeah, I'll talk about a couple things. One, as it relates to employees, and then I'll go to kind of the cannabis stuff going on for the committee. So in terms of former employees, there was a former employee who got let go by another agency, not our agency, who filed a pro se lawsuit initially in Superior Court, got moved to federal court against 6 government agencies related to that, an alleged wrongful termination. That case got moved to U.S. District Court. U.S. District Court ruled in favor of the district in April, basically dismissed the case, gave the former employee the ability to amend their complaint, but as of now, the complaint is gone, and the case is dismissed. They filed in May a motion for reconsideration that's pending. But there's been a couple of board orders that have come out, and every single one of them has been in favor of the district. So, but we're one of 6 district government agencies involved in that. But we feel good about that in terms of that. The other one I'll mention, we had a situation in 2022 where a former employee wanted to come back to the agency in a management capacity, applied to come back to the agency for the management job to come back. They were interviewed, they were not selected. They filed a complaint with OHR in terms of not getting picked. The agency is very comfortable in terms of the selection they made and why that employee wasn't picked. That's still pending with OHR, but that's from 2022. But the agency had a number of valid reasons to make the pick we had. So that's it there. I think on just keeping the committee aware, and we've won all these so far. is on the cannabis front with unlicensed establishment. We had some places that we closed. They filed a lawsuit trying to allege that gifting is legal, based upon the referendum. We've won those cases so far, but they're trying to argue that gifting is legal in the district. So that's just ongoing to make the committee aware. And then the other lawsuit we've had.
Just on those, like, how far have any of those cases made it in terms of how those matters were resolved?
Well, they've been, I can't remember because they keep getting remanded between federal court and Superior Court, but they've gotten scheduled. So, but we've won like TROs, we've won those, and so then they move on to preliminary injunctions.
Okay.
And we feel good. We had argument in the one, and so we feel very comfortable in our position. I'm just trying to let the committee know they're going on. The other one.
Has anything made it all the way to some sort of decision on the merits of, what?
No.
Gifting? Okay.
No, one of them, we have the latest gifting case. We won the TRO. The TRO was denied. And then we just had argument on the preliminary injunction, and we're waiting to hear from the court on the preliminary injunction. And then we have one hemp lawsuit just in terms of the legality of hemp, in terms of being able to sell hemp as it relates to enforcement. So we have a TRO here, and I think scheduled in October 1 on that. So it's just one. Well, actually, we have two. We have two businesses that want to sell hemp that have lawsuits. So those are ongoing. So far, on one of them, the TRO was denied. We have another TRO hearing coming up. And then the one that it was denied, I think, moves to like preliminary injunction and argument on that, which I think may have happened. But we've won all the cases so far. I just want to keep the committee updated in terms of what's going on.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else you'd like to add to the record before we adjourn?
Yeah, I just want to, couple things. Thank your staff. Donnie is amazing, as you know, and I'm looking forward to working with Marissa. And I think people don't realize how good important staff are. On my end, I only look as good as I do because of my staff. Other than that, I want to thank you for having this hearing, Councilmember Fruman for being here. This is all about working together in communication. We only are successful if we're able to make you aware of what's going on and what issues that need to be addressed. Yeah. So I appreciate that.
I didn't anticipate that this would be a hearing that lasted as long as this one did, but when you've been a public servant for more than 2 decades and been in your position for over 15 years, it's hard not to get as much out of you as possible because we know you're going to come prepared. We know you're going to know what you're talking about, and we appreciate your service. As we do the service as well of Ms. Doggett before you. So I want to thank both of the nominees who testified today. As a reminder, those interested in submitting written testimony for the record may do so until 5 p.m. on October 3rd, 2025. Submissions should be uploaded via the council's hearing management system on the council's website at dccouncil.gov. There being no further business before the committee, this marks the end of today's public roundtable. The time is now 11 o'clock on the dot, and this hearing is adjourned.